Welcome back to Season Liberally. Today we are going to be making a wonderful chicken jardinière straight out of Jacques Pépin's kitchen. It's an absolutely fabulous dish. You're gonna love it. Stick around. So, huge hat tip today to Jacques Pépin, who's seriously one of the best TV cooks, I think, that has ever graced the screen. Amazing chef for 50 years. He cooked in the business, and he can explain how to cook so well. If you've never seen anything by Jacques Pépin, I encourage you to search it out. You can find it on YouTube. I know PBS has his shows that air very regularly, so I encourage you to check it out. But I'm taking one of his recipes today, and it's called Chicken Jardinière. And as he says, jardinière means garden in French, and so it's chicken and then things from the garden. And so what we're gonna cook today for you is chicken thighs, a little bit of bacon, some potatoes, root vegetables, and then we're gonna season it with a bouquet garni, some mushrooms, and it's just gonna cook in a single pot for 45 minutes and it'll be done. This dish should take you between an hour and 15 minutes to make, so you can make it on a weeknight if you want, if you're ambitious, and it's really delicious, really kind of outstanding. So we're gonna get started. So first thing we have to do is we have to pull the skin off of these thighs. So I bought thigh meat. You can buy leg and thigh sections if you like. This is not gonna work with white meat. I would not use breast on this. So to pull off the skin, all you have to do is dig underneath really quickly, drag and pull, and then you remove the entire piece of the skin. Now I'm gonna set the skin on the side because I'm gonna make crackling with that, and I'll show you how to do that a little later. So pulling the skin off of each one of these chicken thighs. All right, so we have our chicken thighs here. Now these are bone-in, and bone-in are perfectly fine for this, right? You don't have to worry about taking the bone out. When you cook these will cook long enough, and in fact, the bone may actually contribute some flavor to this dish. So I wouldn't bone these. If you happen to have boneless, skinless thighs, certainly use those. I do want to show you very quickly if you ever have to bone a chicken thigh, it's actually relatively easily. Now you want a butcher knife, fillet knife. A small paring knife will work. Using a big chef's knife for this is going to be difficult. So the first thing you have to do is locate the bone. As you can see here, the bone is here. And then you cut right along top. And that exposes the bone, right? Then you cut along the other side, like so, exposing the bone as you work. Now, you see how I cut on both sides? You can reach your fingers through and just poke through. And as you can see, I'm underneath the bone there. And what you want to do is cut off a little bit of meat on either side of this. And then I just want to take my knife and slide it right up. Now you see this piece here, this is called the oyster. This is a chunk of meat. And if you slide it incorrectly, I could cut that off of this, but I don't want to do that. I want to slide it so that the oyster stays on the meat and doesn't come off with the bone. So I just quickly slice, and the oyster is now attached down here, which is where it should be. Now I scrape. Now you can use the back of your knife to scrape if you like. And then you have to cut alongside here. You can see there's this cartilage. If you look in here, you can see there's all this cartilage that comes along with this, right? So if I cut alongside here, you can see that I'm releasing the meat from the cartilage. It's okay to have some meat stay on here because it's going to be too attached to the cartilage to actually cut off. But what I'm doing is I cut along once, and now I'm just working my way around to cut this meat off the bone and off that cartilage. Now, there's a tiny little bit of meat on here, but it's too close to the cartilage to worry about. And that's how you debone if you need to debone. You have a nice piece of chicken here. You can always cut some of this fat off if you like too. you know, that has nice big fat deposits. If you want to cut fat off, you can. But that's how you debone a chicken thigh. We don't have to do that for this recipe. We are just going to leave the bones in the chicken, but I wanted to show you just in case you wanted to know how to do it. We're gonna get the rest of our mise en place ready. What we're gonna do is we're gonna peel some potatoes now. Whenever I peel potatoes, I always like to have a nice large refuse bowl. It's great, you know, if you can just go out and find a couple of nice big giant stainless steel bowls, you just keep them in your kitchen, then you use them as a refuse bowl. That way you're not cluttering up your working space with peels and wrappers and things. The bigger the bowl, you could just throw in, you know, any kind of discarded, anything that's gonna go in the garbage. And if you're a composter, you can always split this up into 2 different bowls, right? You could have one with your wet garbage and one with stuff that you know you're gonna throw into your landfill. You know, this is the best way and the quickest way to work. And that's one of the things about working in the kitchen is you wanna try to be as efficient as possible. And getting something like this and having something like this on hand just makes it so you work quicker. So this recipe that I say takes an hour actually takes you an hour and doesn't take you an hour and a half to 2 hours because you're constantly walking back and forth throughout your kitchen to try to throw things away, or you're trying to scrape things off onto your garbage can that's sitting next to you and then moving it around. It's always just such a pain. This is a great, easy way to make sure that you don't have to run all around your kitchen. So now I am peeling small red potatoes. Don't want to leave the skin on for this. Skins are great to bake, clearly, and they sometimes taste pretty good in smashed potatoes, but these are gonna boil for a while. So I would not put skin on. If you do fingerlings, you're gonna wanna do some more. I'm gonna cut these into smaller pieces. The real key to this recipe is making sure that all of your sizes of all of the vegetables that you put in are all consistent sizes. So that's what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to, you know, this is clearly larger than this, and we're gonna cut this in half, and we might cut this into quarters. We're gonna try to make everything so that it's about the same size. So there's two sort of extremes to potatoes, waxy and starchy, and there's some potatoes that range in between those. These ones are mostly waxy, they're less starchy, and they actually hold their shape a lot better when they're cooked for a long period of time. When you boil them, they do not turn into mush. Now, if you used Idaho russets in something like this, they would turn into mush. So you gotta be careful on what you decide to pick. All right, so I want it to be about half this size. So this is what I'm gonna model it after, right? This potato here, about half that size. So anything about this size is where I'm gonna go. Now this one, a little bigger, so we're gonna have to cut this one, I think, into quarters. Same thing with this one, too big, needs to be cut into quarters. Half it. You know, some of these might be a little small for a half, but there's not much. You don't want to go with a full-size potato. Something that thick's not going to work. And then this one I will quarter. And there we go. There's our potatoes. All right, I'm going to wash my celery off here. So now with this, I want to leave these in a size that's somewhat large. I don't want it to be diced. It's gonna cook for a while. It's gonna impart its flavor. Now, we are gonna peel our carrots. 3 nice sized carrots for this. Now, carrots are a lot more dense than our celery, so I'm gonna cut the ends off, both sides. And then I'm gonna cut down the center of each of these where I think it's nice and thick. And then I'm just gonna cut like so. And I think those pieces will work out just fine. There we go. That way you get a chunk of carrot. You don't get a round. And the rounds will cook a little fast anyway in this. This is gonna cook on a stove for a while. So we also need pearl onions for this. Now, you go to the store, you buy yourself some pearl onions. There's a couple of ways you can get the skin off of them. They're kind of a pain, right? They're a little bit of a pain, but I have a trick for you. So the easiest, the quickest way, obviously, if you want to get some skin off of these, is to nip both ends, right? So you cut the root end off, cut the other end off, and then just one little tiny cut, and the skin falls right off, right? So the skin just fell right off. That's an easy way to do this. You can, if you want, take a pot of boiling water and drop them in there. Let them sit for a minute in the boiling water. All right, so these cooked for 1 minute, and then they got shocked in cold water. And then if you cut the end off of this, the skin will just pull right away. Do you see how it just pulled right away in my hand? The skin literally just falls right off of these. And there you go, it's now peeled. Now, I'm not crazy about that little stem on the top, but some people think that that's sort of like very important for the pearl onion. That's up to them. They essentially just fall right out of their skins. If you blanch them and shock them for 1 minute, they'll fall right out. But pearl onions can be kind of a pain. So be prepared to futz around with these a little. I would use pearl onions too. I know someone in the comments is going to ask me, can I substitute another onion? Yeah, you probably can, but pearl onions have a very specific flavor, and a whole onion in this is good. It's very tasty at the end of the recipe when you've cooked these for a long time and these onions have sort of given their all to the recipe. They've also absorbed flavor and they're delicious. And if you just dice another onion or quarter another onion, it's not the same thing. I would try to find pearl onions for this. You're going to need about 12 to 15 pearl onions. All right, this recipe calls for 3 cloves of garlic. We're going to chop it up. I'm going to nip the root end off of each of these before I smash them. I'm going to cut that root. If I cut the root end and I swat it, it falls right away from the paper. If you don't cut that root end, you can run into some issues trying to get the paper off of your garlic. Now, make sure all your paper's off your garlic here. So once all the paper's gone and you pulled all the paper off of your cutting board, give each piece a nice swat. You don't want to cut yourself, don't do this, okay? Turn your knife down, flat of the blade, smash it down, and then rock your knife back and forth, cutting that garlic up. We're going for a nice mince here. Just rock your knife until you think it's nicely minced. You can use a garlic press if you like. I find a garlic press is really good for like really, really finely minced garlic. This stuff is roughly minced, so I don't feel like I need it. If you're looking for a paste, that's where I feel like the garlic press excels. And you want to get good at, cutting up garlic. You want to get good with knife skills, right? Makes it so you're more efficient in the kitchen and you're moving quicker. You're moving faster. All right, I got a little bit of butcher's twine here, and I'm going to make a bouquet garni. So I'm going to need some butcher's twine. And bouquet garni is a bit of string, or sometimes you can even use like a little tea bag. They sell little small cheesecloth bags you can put this stuff in. It's basically a place where you can put your fresh herbs so that it's easy to just remove it. When it's done, when it's finished, you could just pull it right out and remove it. You don't have to worry about someone getting a giant piece of herb in their dish. It just all comes out. So I have some bay leaf. I have a couple of sprigs of parsley and a couple sprigs of thyme. Now the bay leaf are dried, but the other ones are not. They are fresh. And so, use fresh whenever you can. I can't get fresh bay leaves where I'm at. It really is a very simple slip knot. So as you see, I just do a slip knot, tie it a little tight, and then I tie it again. I double knot it, and butcher's twine makes it so that it should be okay. It shouldn't fall apart, but lots of times after I double knot it, I try to do it one more time, a nice tight knot here on this side, wrap it around one more time. There you go. Nice bouquet garni. Now I have mushrooms here, but I'm not going to do anything with them right now. These mushrooms are pretty filthy. They have a big clumps of dirt on them. I don't know if you can see, there's a big giant clump of dirt down here at the bottom that fell off one of these mushrooms. So here's the deal. Mushrooms are fine to wash, but you always want to wash them right before you cook with them. If you wash them and then set them on the side and finish your mise and walk out of the kitchen and get a snack and come back, they're going to get slimy and gross. You introduce water to these, it's okay if you're going to cook them right away, but if you're not going to cook them right away, wait to wash them and cut them until right before they go in, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to set them over here for now, and then when I'm ready to actually put the dish together and combine it all, that's when I'm going to get out the knife, I'm going to take them over, wash them real good, and then I'm going to cut them. I have 4 pieces of bacon here that I cut in half. They call this in the UK streaky bacon. This is our regular bacon here in the States. I'm going to cut what they call lardons. And so lardons are little matchsticks, right? We're going to cut this all the way down. We're going to cut little matchsticks worth of bacon. And this is going to be the thing that actually seasons a lot of the dish, and it's going to be one of the first things we cook. So you're going to need a pot to cook this in. Don't do it in a pan, it's going to be too tall, right? We're going to add a couple cups of liquid, 8 chicken thighs, it's a lot going on in here, plus all these vegetables. You need a pot. You're going to need a pot with a lid. It's got to have a lid on it. You're going to have to be able to cover this when you cook it. We're going to add some oil to this. Now, we're going to add a couple tablespoons worth of oil to this. We're going to cook our bacon. Now, you can render fat from bacon, but what we want to do is we want to really kickstart this process. We want to immediately, as soon as we put it in, to start to sizzle. We don't want to have to wait for the bacon to start to render, and it's going to get brown quicker, and a little bit of extra fat in this isn't a big deal. This will just help kickstart that process. So we're going to put our bacon in the bottom, and we're going to cook it up. Now I want crispy bacon, so I'm going to spread it out in the pan. Make sure it's not crowding all the rest of the bacon, and we're going to let it just get up to temperature, nice and hot. This is a medium-high heat. You want to cook it, stir it frequently. Make sure you're turning it so that if one side is done, you're going to turn the other side. You want to crisp this up. Starting to get some color. We're going to keep on going. We want a crispy bacon. We don't want bacon that is undercooked. And each time I stir it, what I'm trying to do is just stir it, get it so that it's in a different spot, and spread it out so that all of it is trying to touch as much of the fat that is rendered off as possible. Just turn it nice and brown. This is right where you want to be. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take these out of my pan. I'm going to put them and reserve them for the end. Right? I want the fat that this produces, right? So I'm doing a good job of trying to lean it to the side, get as much of the fat off on off of this spoon as possible, and just reserving the bacon bits for the end. A few bacon bits wind up in here, that's okay. But what we want is, we want a crunch at the end that we can sprinkle on. Just make sure you don't eat all your bacon bits, because I know that is a real struggle for myself, for sure, and I'm sure for a lot of people who enjoy bacon. It's hard not to just dig into those, because they're perfectly cooked. All right. Into our pan goes our chicken. Now we want to get a little color on this if we can. Now you notice I didn't salt the bottoms of these. I didn't salt them beforehand. There's salt in that bacon fat, right? There's a lot of salt in there. So we're just going to lightly salt the tops of these, and then that's it. We're gonna salt this dish later on once it's come out of the oven and we're gonna taste it, right? But what we don't wanna do is over salt it. The more salty products you add, the less salt you need to add, sprinkling it in. So we're just gonna be real careful. Now these are gonna cook for about 4 or 5 minutes in this pan, and then we're gonna flip them. They're not gonna get a ton of color, but they're gonna get a little bit of color, and what they are gonna do is create some fond on the bottom, which is what we want. So do you see the color here? This is the color we're looking for. It's not a lot of color. It's just a tiny bit. You can cook these for a really long time and they're not gonna get a lot of color. So this has gotta cook, like I say, for a couple more minutes, but I wanna, while I'm doing that, get my mushrooms ready, because at this point, everything's gonna go in the next few minutes, so it's perfect time to wash the mushrooms. I like to dump them right into a colander, and then I can wash them out and try to get all that grit out of there. So that's what I'm gonna do, wash these off. All right, so now, with these mushrooms, I do want to remove this little piece of this stem here, and I am going to cut these in half, okay? So you want to get rid of that little stem, and then, like I said, I cut them in half. You can leave them whole if you want, or you can quarter them. I just don't want to get a whole mushroom on my plate is all. See, now look at that, right? I'm cutting this piece off. That's a big piece. It was an indentation in the top, and it might have grit in it. I can't be sure, so just get rid of it. See where we are? Yeah, see, so you got a little bit of color there. It's not amazing. It's not super deep, but there's a little bit of color in there. I'll hold it up, maybe we can't see it from there. Maybe you can see that better. So now what I like to do is move these over to the side just for a second. I'm gonna put in about 2 tablespoons worth of flour in here, right? Don't wanna go too crazy with the flour. You wanna put a little bit of flour in there. And I'm just gonna stir that up a little, get it moving around in the bottom. I wanna just cook that flour just for a second in that fat down there. Because what we're gonna do next is we are gonna deglaze with some wine. So I wanted to get that going, get this hot, and then I just wanna pour my wine in. Now this is a cup of white wine. And we're gonna deglaze with this. I'm gonna use this to scrape off the bottom. And we're gonna cook this for about 2 minutes. I'm gonna spend some time getting all this stuff off the bottom. Anything that's on the bottom comes up. All the fond, that beautiful fond. And we're gonna bring it back to a boil. So I've scraped and we are at a boil. I'm gonna add a cup of water to this. You can use chicken stock if you like. I'm gonna give it a stir, just a little stir, trying to move things around, get that water moving around in here. Now I'm gonna lay everything flat in here, right? And this is when we start adding everything. In goes the garlic. All our mushrooms. Celery, carrots. Onions and potatoes. Okay? Nice full pot. And we're just gonna stir it. We're gonna give it a nice stir. Just try to distribute everything in here. It's not gonna all be submerged. That's okay. What's gonna do a lot of the cooking is the steam that comes off of this, right? So try to make sure your chicken is deep as you can. You don't wanna leave it on the top. You want the chicken to infuse with the liquid. Now I wanna take my bouquet garni and I wanna stick it in the liquid as well, right? Tuck it down nice in there so it's in the liquid. All right. Cover goes on, this comes back up to a boil. Once it boils, we're gonna turn it down to a simmer and let it cook for 45 minutes. All right, we're gonna make the chicken skins. As I promised earlier, we would make some chicken skins. First thing I do is I sprinkle a touch of salt on the bottom piece of parchment paper that's lining a sheet pan. I'm gonna take my chicken skins, and there's 2 sides, right? There's this rough side, and then there's a real smooth side. And the smooth side is what gets laid down flat here, as flat as we can make it. The key to making a crispy chicken skin is that everything should be as flat as possible against the pan. So we want to flatten everything out, right? Make sure to put that, if you put that smooth side down, it sticks really well and retains its shape. And you just want to make sure there's very little gaps, right? Wash my hands real quick. Okay, another little touch of salt. Some cracked pepper. And what gives them a nice bit of richness is I pour some olive oil over the top. Just like so. Then another piece of parchment on top of this, right? Press it down. Another sheet pan on top. Put this in the oven at about 375 still oven, 350 convection. Check it in 25 minutes, lift it up. If they're not completely browned, let it go for a little while. You're gonna wanna keep on cooking this until they're nice and golden brown. Start checking at 25 minutes, but it could last as long as 45 minutes. Voila, those are my chicken skins. Don't they look good? I don't put these on a paper towel. Paper towel is gonna make them soggy. Put them on a rack. A nice rack like this is a great way to let these cool down. Another way, of course, is to put one in your mouth and breathe a lot. That seems to be a very popular way. You sort of breathe around the food, but you can also just wait until they're ready. These took 25 minutes. And as you can see, they look great. Let's give one a try. Nice and warm right out of the oven. Listen to this. Oh, so good. Really outstanding. Crunchy. Use a light touch with the salt, right? Can always salt them later. If you put too much salt on these, they turn into like little salt porks. Very unpleasant. But if you just use a little bit of salt on the bottom, a little bit of salt on the top, that is plenty. You don't want to oversalt these, but these turned out amazing. Hey, hon, I have chicken skins if you want them. Yeah. Okay, here it is. Look at how pretty. Now, needs a couple more things. First, frozen peas, 1 cup. Sprinkle them on top, stir them out. They don't need to cook with it, because if they cook with it, they will overcook. So you need the peas in there. While you're stirring it, find your bouquet garni, pull that out. Now we're just gonna give this a stir. We wanna warm the peas all the way through, so just make sure that they touch the liquid, right? Don't give it too much of a stir, because it's a delicate dish. Things are gonna start to fall apart if you give it too much of a stir. All right, so now we're gonna taste it. We are looking for salt content. Now, it's got a sauce. We're gonna taste the sauce. Needs salt, needs pepper. We're gonna splash some salt in here, put some pepper in here, give it a stir and give it a taste. It's perfect. Doesn't need anything. All right, we're gonna get a nice piece of chicken. Take 2. Nice rustic dish. Some potatoes. All right, so let me show you what each one of these vegetables looks like, right? Mushroom, completely cooked. Perfect. Piece of carrot, cooked all the way through. Potato still has body, but is fully cooked. And then, you can see it's just falling apart. This chicken is just falling right off the bone. So good. This with a nice big crusty piece of bread with some of that sauce that's in there. Outstanding. This is a great winter dish, cold weather dish. Doesn't even have to be winter. It could be the middle of summer. If it's a cold day, wonderful, wonderful dish. I hope you give this a try. Let me know what you think. Big hat tip to Jacques Pépin. Seriously, my favorite TV chef. I again urge you to go check out his work. He's amazing. This is his dish. I just made it for you today, but I hope you try it. And if you do, please leave a message in the comments. Let me know what you think. So please like, share, subscribe. I know I say this every time, but we're trying to grow the channel. I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to keep doing this. So the more I see people are enjoying these videos, the more I see people are sharing these videos, the more I see people are commenting and liking, the better chance I have of continuing to do this. So please, I encourage you to help build this community by subscribing and liking. All right, thanks so much for joining me. Give this a try. Catch you next time. Season liberally.